not on the agenda yet because I didn't know what the actual title and where the salary scale was going to land. So Diane and I had talked about waiting until the decision was made today on that position, and then we can amend the agenda so it was transparent as to what salary selection you were making. So I have that resolution pretty much prepared that I can send it forward to Diane this afternoon.
That would be my preference, since I mean.
Amend tomorrow's agenda to include that non-union salary resolution. So it'll be removing those 2 manager positions, creating that 1 administrator position. And then it was the pandemic response administrator position that Commissioner Netherland was talking about, that was sent back for HR recommendation.
Right, that's what I understood.
That's what I understood too.
Okay, so we'll move forward with just the 1. And the other piece of business that I know Dave had in his packet was the Housing and Behavioral Health Advisory Board.
I thought we addressed that. The bylaws?
It is, he's expanding the advisory board membership.
Yeah.
Right.
We approved that.
You did?
Yeah.
Yep.
I guess I missed that. Okay.
It was this morning.
Okay.
It was a crazy morning.
Okay, so we'll put that on the October 20th agenda. Because there is not a meeting next week, it's budget workshops next week.
Right. Right.
So it wasn't my internet that went belly up this morning?
It might have been, but I think everybody's did.
Maybe yours affected everybody.
Ah,
Yeah, they said it was a third party according to Hood Canal, so maybe that's you, Frank. You're a
Must
third
have
party.
Possible.
Frank, we warned you about having those parties.
I know, it's those third party yeah, they get you every time.
Right. So I think that covers all of the community services, correct? Okay. So that means we can finish up with support services.
So to start off, the first item we had was a discussion on the PUDs in regards to delinquent accounts. And based on the briefing or the meeting that we had with WASAC this afternoon, there's some question about whether or not we can enter into a subrecipient agreement with the PUDs to cover citizens' delinquent accounts rather than directly with citizens. So I'm going to ask that we pull that off until we have further conversation with our the Mason County group that discusses the COVID allocation on Thursday mornings, and have follow-up conversation with WASAC about what their requirements and restrictions are regarding specifically payments to citizens with delinquent accounts to PUDs and utility bills.
Right. And they're not saying that we cannot, it's just the matter of how we do it. So we can do it through grants or we can have subrecipients. And so we just need to clarify which way we can do that. That way we can help out the people with their utilities.
So when you say subrecipients, do you mean
PUD 1 or 3?
Or the customers?
No, those would not be subrecipient to us.
Because everything that I've seen has been pointing to us treating the PUDs as a subrecipient.
Right.
That's the Clallam example that I got from PUD3 that I forwarded on. And so I don't understand I would like to see what WASAC is basing this on and what, I'd like to see it in writing. I'd like to see what Commerce is saying, because this is,
Right. And us, yes, sorry, you froze. Yeah, we do too. We want to make sure that we're doing it correctly. It's not that we're not going to do it. It's just that we want to make sure that we're doing it correctly. Department of Commerce, Tony, is amazing, and he wants to make sure that we're all following the right guidelines. So we just need to make sure that our steps are appropriate, so that when we do get audited, and we will be audited by the federal government, we want to make sure that we're crossing all of our I's and dotting our T's. And that way we don't get the PUDs in any kind of trouble either. And we're just making sure that we follow the procedures and make it work.
Yeah, this afternoon's 12 o'clock meeting, they brought forward some questions about whether or not it should be handled via grant program or subrecipient program. And until we get absolute clarification, I would prefer that we hold up on entering into any contracts tomorrow, and make sure that we're following the Department of Commerce recommendation.
so how long do we think it'll take for them to provide that clarification? Because I think my concern will be, how quickly can the PUDs assess, get the documentation in place from their customers and all that stuff sort of squared away within the timelines that we have available to get this money out. I mean, it feels like, and I know this, I'm preaching to the choir here, but I mean, it feels like if you're a business, God bless it, we'll hand over the money, no questions, minimal questions asked. But if you're an individual or a family who's struggling, we got to jump through all kinds of hoops. And so maybe it's best if everybody just went out and formed their own LLC and put put all their delinquencies and issues into that, and we can grant out the money much quicker that way. So whatever we got to do in order to get relief into working people's hands and the families that need it right now, I just would really love to see that turned around as quickly as possible.
Yeah, you're feeling our pain from day one.
And I would suspect, I've already got a call in to Tony Hansen with Department of Commerce. So I would suspect by next Monday, we should have answers.
And so, could I say a couple things?
Oh, yes, please.
Okay, yeah, so, we did go through legal, which is Rob Johnson for us, and then also contacted our state auditor's office about, this subrecipient deal, and everybody seemed comfortable with it. And, we also talked to Tony at Commerce, so we seemed pretty comfortable with it. No one brought up any of those type of issues. And so I think that we will still move forward with trying to pre-qualify our customers for this deal and not slow it up. And say until we get approval from the county, obviously we're not dispersing any funds or anything, but we will move on the basis that we are getting the money so we can get customers pre-qualified and get paperwork going, because Commissioner Schutte is right with that, as well as Sharon, that time is of the essence, and it's too hard to get customers' paperwork all in order to meet all the requirements. So, I'm assured that all of this will get worked out. So we'll just keep moving forward so we can get it done.
That would be great.
Yes.
I guess I have maybe another question for Frank or Commissioner Trapp. Can you maybe explain a little bit more how this came up? Like, what was the context? Who brought it forward? Did anybody from Clallam County talk about what their experience has been like working with their PUD? Be nice to have a little bit more detail than just sort of an issue was raised, and so we're gonna stand back.
Right. I don't know if I want to mention the county that was called out because that wouldn't be fair to them. but one county was called out and they said that they may have been doing it incorrectly, and so it was not Clallam. It was a different county. And so we've asked them to take a look at Clallam's. They've had no idea or no issues with Clallam County. So we just want to make sure that it's all of our ducks are lined up in a row. And so it's going to happen. We just want to make sure that we do it right.
And so I guess, and without asking you to obviously name names, I'm not trying to get people called out like that, but I mean, was this a county that had entered into an agreement and had begun to disperse money, or were they at a similar stage as us where we're still going through the process?
Yeah, you have counties doing a couple different things. So you have one county that is doing it with each individual. So they're helping the individuals, whereas we would be asking the PUDs to work through their those with an account. And so I think what they're trying to do is just solidify the way the process, the way that it should be, and not have a whole bunch of different processes out there. The same is going on with a lot of the nonprofits as well. So they're just trying to make sure that all of their the guidance they're giving to one county is not different than the guidance they're giving to another county.
I see Kristen is logged on too from PUD1. I think you share the same legal counsel that PUD3 does. I don't know if you have any insight on how you've vetted this on on that side of things, or, you know, I mean, Annette did a pretty good job just sort of walking through how you've kind of established the program, but I don't know if you have any differences or comments. You're muted.
You're on mute. Yeah, there, you're mute.
I apologize because I thought we weren't supposed to call in at 2, so I didn't call. I missed the first part where Annette talked. It's probably pretty similar. Are you talking about as far as how we determined who is eligible for the funding on our end?
That, and it seems like the question that is being raised now after a state association of counties meetings is going down the path of subrecipient, or apparently there have been other counties or a county who have been doing grants to individual customers and not through the agency, which is, if I'm misunderstanding that, Frank or Sharon, correct me,
No,
but
you're correct.
so I was under the impression that we were considering the subrecipient route. And so I think that's what both of your organizations have vetted.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to make sure that that was the case.
And I think that's probably, you know, from the county's perspective, that's probably the safest route too, because we undergo a pretty vigorous audit each year through the state auditor's office. And so I think, you know, having a responsible community partner that you can contract with, similar to like you do for the EDC, for the business portion of it, having the PUDs be responsible community partners to get that funding out to households, and that direct immediate aid is the intent of the act. And we have, you know, the best resources to do that in a meaningful way.
And the quickest way as well.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah, we just want to make sure that what we do is when we get audited, they can, you know, it'll just pass right through. We also want to make sure that we're protecting you guys too, because you'll get audited as well. And the feds, they say the feds are a little different, and hopefully they won't pick our county to audit. If they do, though, we should come away with flying colors. So we just want to make sure that we're following all the directions.
Believe it or not, the audit isn't my biggest worry. The biggest worry I have right now is just to make sure that it's considered an allowed use and we get reimbursed. If we do this and don't get reimbursed.
Right. It is considered an allowed use. We just have to make sure that we're doing it appropriately.
If we don't do it right, they may say no. What did they say to the other county? Did they say no or just get mad at them?
They haven't said anything yet. That's what they're still working on. They're still working on their guidelines.
And Commissioner Schutte, to your question as far as timing, one of the last things we did change in the subrecipient agreement was the end date. that it was extended to November 30th as the date up till which the utilities can ask for assistance for covering delinquent account payments.
Does that mean that they can expend that money? They couldn't expend the money then December 1st. It would have to be, the customers would have to be vetted and the accounts would have to be debited or credited, I guess, all prior to November 30th.
Correct.
And you guys don't meet again for 2 more weeks, is that correct? After tomorrow?
Well, we should have an answer real soon as to what how we can do that, whether it's the subrecipients. Now, I know that Annette said that they're going to go ahead and continue processing the applicants or at the applications. I would suggest that as well.
Yeah, the letter that I think was included in your briefing packet, we have, those are going out to the customers in Mason County. Then we also have application pending with Jefferson County Commission as well. So we'll reach out for those customers because we serve up into Jefferson County. So we anticipate doing that too. I share Mason 3's concern a little bit about the timeline. That's tight. That's tight to vet that many people and get the documentation and get those funds applied.
Right. Unfortunately, we have felt that they've said, so Commerce has said, here's your money, go forth and spend. And then they bring you back in and say, wait a minute, we want to make sure that these processes are followed, but then we're going to change them again. So it's frustrating for all of us. And I definitely feel what you're going through and want to help out as much as I can by following the directions, if that makes sense.
So one more comment. We do have an email from Tony at Commerce that actually states the county could subcontract with a subrecipient to administer the program if desired. So that was when we had emailed him with some questions. And so I think that's really good documentation for all of us.
And then when did you
Email with us.
September 29th.
Could you share that email with us?
Yeah, so Lynn can probably send that on.
It should be in your briefing.
In your packet? Yeah.
Yes. And it's also consistent with what our neighboring PUD in Clallam County received. It's similar to the verbiage that they received from Commerce as well.
Yeah.
Well, they have said since day one, take a picture so that we can.
Yeah, right. We have that. Yeah. Yeah. So he did answer it October 2nd.
Yeah.
So Lynn sent it September 29th.
Okay.
Yeah, again, commissioners, I'll make my pitch. I think this is a critical thing to fund. I think if we do it as a subrecipient agreement, as we have been, I think we're well within the scope of the dollars. And I would encourage us to move forward as quickly as we can. I think we've had a number of eyes on this. And I frankly, I think waiting is, could cost us more than if we didn't. So.
No, I agree. And having their email makes me feel a lot more comfortable about progressing, moving forward.
Yeah.
Guys, there's nothing that says we can't have a special meeting on Tuesday and still find out what the Association of Counties is saying.
You mean Tuesday next week?
Yep.
On the
We have a
we do have a budget workshop
budget
scheduled.
workshop scheduled for 9 o'clock.
Yep.
Has either so both PUDs, have you both reviewed the subrecipient agreement?
Yes.
And as the general managers for both the organizations, are you able to sign, or does that need to have board action on your parts as well?
Yeah, I can.
I can sign. Mhm.
So, and maybe in the interim, take another look at it and have it signed around in your organizations. And then the last piece of it is us. If we need to do a special meeting next Tuesday, I'm obviously for that. I want to get this done. It'll be signed by you, and then it'll just be awaiting our signature, and then we can we can get some relief out to you and your ratepayers.
So
I'd support that.
has your attorney reviewed it, the final red line version that Rob Johnson sent over?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, and we'll get that email to you as well from Tony on October 2nd. Yeah,
Excellent.
You make sure you get all of us with that.
yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, guys.
All right, thank you.
So one more item, or the next item, is the COVID funding distribution review. And I had submitted a updated distribution allocation report to the board. And had added to this the public health funds grants that have been awarded to public health for the county. As Dave mentioned this morning, there's $1.389 million from the CARES Act for public health. There's for the homeless fund, 117, $1,006,000 for their grants. The health fund itself has $3,041,000, and the auditor's CARES Act funding is at $202,000. What I have done in the allocations for contract tracing for public health, I've moved those dollars from the general fund CARES Act over into the public health CARES Act column. Additionally, Wasalfo COVID costs, I've moved those from the general fund CARES Act over to the public health CARES Act funding for those costs. We have reconciled the payroll and expenses that have already been paid for out of year-to-date expenses through financial services and through the payroll department. And those are the items at the end of page 1, as well as broken them out by general fund and public health dollars. So that portion of payroll that is attributable to COVID is under the Public Health CARES Act dollars. That which are payroll costs attributable to general fund is under the general fund CARES Act dollars. The teleworking and networking costs that the county has incurred have allocated those costs to public health under the Public Health CARES Act dollars for the network software, network hardware, and Zoom costs as well. The question I have is the second round of what we talked about last week, or the last briefing, of assistance to local businesses through the EDC. There was a question of whether or not that should be $300,000 or $600,000. So I have a question to the board. How would you like to proceed with that?
Do we have any ideas how much the requests have been through the EDC?
I have spoken to Jennifer. This is about a week ago, and she said that they're out canvassing currently, so they don't have any specific idea. They have put marketing tools or marketing items out to the community to find out what type of ask there may be in a second round. So direct answer is we don't have a clue yet. But I have 300,000 already identified in this allocation.
It might be nice if they would come in and brief us.
I will have them come in.
I mean, not saying that we can't make any decisions here, but it would be nice to have Jennifer or Karin come in and kind of walk us through how everything has gone, and maybe they'll have some more data on where they want to go with another round.
I will have them in for the next briefing.
Any other thoughts, commissioners? Or, I mean,
I'd like the idea of getting them in here to see, as I said before, the way it was structured before, it left a lot of people out. I'm not sure they could tell us what's needed because we haven't given them the idea that they can go out and to structure something to bring back to us. I'd like to tell them to structure it, bring it back to us so we can move forward with it and get it out there. If we don't get enough applications in, so we don't spend the money on that.
yeah, I think, this has to be a two-way street. I mean, we're relying on them to, be our kind of liaison to the business community via the CARES Act. And I think it'd be great if they had some recommendations along those lines. I've mentioned before, I'd like to see us address some of the issues in the restaurant and hospitality industry. There's still an outstanding, what I would call telecom request from Hood Canal Communications that could be run through the EDC. And if we do it that way, that could be a local business grant versus us, continuing down this path of, is this a necessary utility or is this not a necessary utility? There's a vetting process already established through the EDC that they could go through that would clear a lot of that up and, be a little bit more straightforward on the requirement side. I think it would be much more helpful to have the EDC participate in these conversations versus us trying to come up with what we think works.
Okay, I will have the EDC come in and brief the board.
With a request to bring us what it would look like, the proposals.
Yeah, how it works and what the new structure might be.
Yeah. Because we might want to consider a couple different tiers. As we talked about before, 10,000 would not help Hood Canal as a local business as much as they may need, where we may need to have a couple of tiers.
Exactly.
Right, and there are other counties that have used, they didn't limit it to internet. It was any type of utility to include television.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Next item is it's a housekeeping. We had brought forward a parcel sale of 410 East Hilliard Drive that we had identified as $7,500 purchase price. Well, in the contracting process and the title search and the moving towards actually selling the parcel, it was identified that the sellers are purchasing it for $9,501. So we'd like to correct that Scribner's error in our resolution to bring it up from $7,500 to $9,501.
Yes, good. I was wondering about that, so I'm glad.
Okay.
Good with me.
That's good.
The other item is, again, a last minute ask or request. This is that $105,000 for the repair of the courthouse ventilation system. Do we have an okay to move forward with making that repair there?
I'm good.
Did you say we can justify it through the COVID, or we could not? We have to do it through REIT.
We would have to do it through REIT.
I thought. I'm still okay with it, though. I just keep track of where the monies are.
And there's capacity. There's capacity in REIT. We're not bumping other projects.
Well, that's the, if we want to take it out of REIT, I'll do an analysis of seeing where REIT dollars are. And then we can confirm if there's capacity in REIT.
I thought we had a big ending fund balance in it already, let alone expected at the end of the year.
We do. The question is whether or not the roofing, the seismic can be charged under COVID for the quarantine isolation component of Building 10. And if it cannot, then we need to revisit how the funding for those pieces are going to be covered.
Yeah, I get the need for the project, and Judge Goodell had reached out to me, and I haven't had a chance to connect back with him. But, for me, my big thing is how do these pieces fit into the overall. There's always some consideration that has to be made. We need to know what might get bumped or not done. If there is capacity and ending fund balance, we got to know what that is. But I'm supportive as long as there is that part of the conversation happening too.
Okay, and we'll have a little more insight into the ending fund balance component of it in our budget briefing. Next item is employee service awards. Diane.
Yes, so this is the annual recognition of employees for years of service. And with COVID, we won't be having a get together. So our intent is just to we'll do the pins and the certificates. We'll send them out to departments. We'll try to somehow make it special for them, but we're working on doing that.
You want to do a drive-through?
Well, we're going to do something.
Okay. I trust you.
Okay. And then my next thing is permission to extend our Mason Web TV contract, same terms for 2021.
I'm good. He's definitely earning his keep this year.
He is. Okay, and also, can I touch on the schedule a little bit? Because I know that it sounds like we may need to add a little bit of meeting to the October schedule. So next week, if we're okay with the PUD subrecipient contracts, because we do have budget workshops scheduled, is the board okay if we did like an 8:30 commission meeting? Because it doesn't sound like it'd be much on it.
I'm good.
Okay. Do I have Commissioner Netherland and Schutte? You're good? Okay.
I will be here.
Okay. And then right now we have on the 19th Monday, we have a budget workshop scheduled, but I'm wondering, because otherwise we go clear till the 26th before briefings again. Should we maybe plan to have briefings that morning? Because with this COVID funding, it sounds like we're running out of time to turn these around.
I would be fine with that.
Okay.
And then we could have the budget workshop in the afternoon. Would that work?
Yeah, I'll see how the briefings, whether it be the afternoon or after briefings, but I think we need to allow another briefing in there to kind of catch some of these agreements that are going to be needed.
Yep.
Okay. I'll schedule it that way.
Then we have and that would work out fine because we have the 20th for a regular meeting in case we have any additions
Yes.
happen. Okay. Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
Then the last item we have, Ross, is use of Truman Glick Park.
Right. It came to our attention that Mary McKnight School has been using the Truman Glick Park in the afternoons for their kids. They're doing some exercises, and parents are actually taking their kids up there to have them get some physical, which is really big for the kids. They asked if they could continue that till the 31st of October. I see no problem with that. I've talked to our guys. They don't have a problem with it. It's very minimum trash problem. The whole thing was the bathrooms. They wanted to make sure the bathrooms would stay open. We don't have a problem with that if that's okay with you guys. Normally, everything closes at 1 on October 1st, the parks. MCRE obviously closed August 25th because of the irrigation that's going on over there, which is, by the way, going very well. So as long as that's okay with you guys, we're okay with leaving it open for the kids to use that for their PE class.
Yeah, I'm very supportive of this. I talked to Matt Mallory, their superintendent out there, and one of their school board members, Cindy Bremeyer. This is really important to the kids and their PE teacher, and if we can accommodate it, I think it'd be great. And also, I just say too, and Ross, you know Bernie and Heather, our park hosts out there, they do a great job after everything, and so
They
give
are
a
fantastic. Those
yeah,
two are
give
really
a
cool.
thanks to your parks crew for being able to accommodate that as well. I know it's a big deal for the folks out there.
And we'll leave it open. Obviously, if it's open for the kids in the afternoon, it'll be open in the morning for anybody else that wants to use it.
Sounds great to me.
And
Thank
that's
you.
all that we have for our briefing. Thank you, commissioners.
Okay, great. So now we have a decision to make. Do we want to stay on this, in this Zoom room, or do we want to go to the budget workshop Zoom room?
If I may suggest, go to the budget workshop, because there may be other people on that Zoom that are not here that wanted to participate or listen to the budget workshop.
Okay, sounds good.
And is that out somewhere, the Zoom number for that?
I'll forward it to you, Rose.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, see you in the Zoom room.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
I think we're ready to go when you are.
Okay, I'm ready to go. So did we need to do introductions for this meeting as well?
We probably should.
Okay.
So we'll go around the Zoom room. We have Commissioner Schutte, Commissioner Netherland, myself, Jennifer Byerly, Frank Pinter, and Ross McDowell. I think that's all that's in the room.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner. So to begin, we are going to start with the general fund for the 2021 proposed budget version 1, I guess you can call it. So we'll start with, and I'm going to share my screen so you can see it here.
Great.
Okay, so this was the briefing document that was provided to the commission. It starts out with the general fund revenue. We have the departments are requesting a total of, and this includes beginning fund balance, $51,074,185. The beginning fund balance is $12,767,631, which leaves a requested budget for the general fund of $38,306,554. Then we'll move on to the expenditures on the second page. We have, again, the total comes to $51,074,185. The total requested expenditures for all the departments are $42,302,570. The ending fund balance would be $8,771,615 if we were to go with the department's requested budgets at this time. So any questions or comments before we move on to showing the general fund maintenance level budget as it sits right now?
Nope.
Okay, so I'm going to go back up to the revenue.
Randy with you.
Yeah, just for clarifications, if we did exactly what we had asked with, or what we had discussed, which is status quo with the contract added in, what number is that? Is that the 51?
No, that is the $52,108,185, and the reason for that difference is the treasurer has requested that $900,000 of that be reduced from the revenue because she wants to be a little bit more conservative on several of the budget items. The interest, it was the interest, the timber revenue, sales tax, and I believe it was those 3 items, but we'll go through that a little more in detail in a moment. So the maintenance level budget that you're talking about would be the 185, with the beginning fund balance again of 12,767,631. And we'll get to that in a moment too, because that's subject to some changes. So the total maintenance level budget at this time for the revenue that I'm showing for all the departments would be 39,340,554. And the total expenditures on the next page for the general fund would be 52,108,185, with the ending fund balance being $12,182,092. And the total expenditures would be $39,926,93. And so right now, currently, but the maintenance level budget is out of balance by $585,539. And that is also, of course, subject to change slightly. But that in a nutshell is the budget overview, the department's ask versus the maintenance level budget at this time. The difference in revenue being that $1,034,000 negative, which consists of these differences here, along with this $3.4 million difference, which is the reduction to ending fund balance. So we're actually out of balance here by $4.4 million. So does that make sense? Do you have questions on that at this time?
Yeah, not out of budget if we don't pay it though.
Right.
Right, exactly. Yeah, so budget level 3 is much more in balance than the budget requests, even though the total budget is a lower amount, the $51,074,185.
Jennifer, just a question. So based on our financial policy, what is our target range for fund balance?
So our target range for fund balance, we would need approximately between 11 and 12 million to be comfortable. I think that we're probably going to actually end up with about 14 million conservatively. And we'll go through how I got to that number. We can go through that now if you want. So over the last 3 years, so 2017 through 2019 or 2019 through 2017, for revenue, we've over collected our revenue in the general fund by 6.2% in 2019. So we collected 2.2 million over our budget in 2019. In 2018, we collected 1.4 million, close to 1.4 million, or 3.8% of our budget. We over collected. And then in 2017, we over collected $950,000, or 2.9% of our total budget. And so the average over the last 3 years is about 1.5 million per year, or 4.3% of the total budget that we've over collected. Then on the expenditure side, we have under expended. In 2019, we under expended 2.7 million, or 7.4% of our budget. In 2018, we under expended 2.1 million, or 6.1%. And in 2017, we underspent 2.6 million, or 7.4%, for an average of close to 2.5 million, or 7%. So adding in the amount that we have consistently over collected in revenue of 1.5 million, and then the amount we've underspent in expenditures, 2.5 million, we're averaging $4 million in over collecting and underspending in our budget.
But Jennifer, that should change a little bit. In 2017, you're basing it on the budget, right? The end budget that we ended up with. We had a loss in revenue during that year and we had to change that budget. So there is quite a large number that should be calculated into that 2017 based on the original budget.
Yeah, and I was using the total budget, not the adopted budget. So yeah, I mean, this is very subjective. I mean, you know, I think I would not want to add 4 million into our ending fund balance. I think that that's not a very conservative way to go, but I think that adding in 2 million, I've already added in close to $1 million to get that $11 million figure. So, or I'm sorry, the $12 million figure. Last year it was 11, $12.7 million figure. So I think we would be safe adding in a little over $1 million to come up with roughly 14 million.
I think you're correct. I thought that, remember I said that last year, and I still think it, with money coming in, coming out on the grants for COVID even, could be even a little bit different there. But I've been predicting the 14. I think that's a realistic number for this year, but I'd rather go conservative for next year. We don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, and really, I mean, I'd rather underestimate what we're going to bring in. You know, anywhere from the 12 to 14 million dollar number, I'm comfortable with. Anything more than that, I think that that's not being conservative, and anything less than that, and I think we're undervaluing ourselves. So, so that would be my best guess, is about 14 million. So if everybody is comfortable with that, I'll change that beginning fund balance number to that. Or if there's any questions or comments on that, we can definitely, you know, you can think about it, we can revisit it. I haven't talked to Frank about this, so I don't know how you feel about that, Frank.
I'm in total agreement. I think 14 million is a conservative but very achievable number, given the history that we've had over the last couple of years.
Okay.
And then of that 14, what amount of that would be restricted?
So of that, we have the accrued leave, which is right now at about 520,000. The reserve for equipment at 525,000. Technology reserve at 200,000. $1 million contingency reserve, and then the operating reserve. Right now, I have it set at 20%, but really it should be, you know, 25% of our total previous year's operating. I think that our policy says between 15 and 25, but 25 is I think our target.
Yeah, use the 25 number.
Okay.
Please.
Can you send us? Can you put that one? Can you put that together, and then get that to us?
Yes, and actually, I can share my screen if you want to see it.
Yeah, but I'll also want a copy.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, I'd like a paper copy too.
Okay. And I'll make that part of the next budget briefings if you want to do that too.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay,
And
so
that does
here,
factor, I'm sorry, real quick before you get into that, and that does factor in the proposed revenue changes made by the treasurer.
well, this is just for beginning fund balance.
But your estimation of the 14 million, does that factor in those revenue changes?
No, because the revenue changes are for the actual budget. This is just for the beginning fund balance of 2021. So what she is wanting to reduce are the actual budget revenues that come in 2021. So not so this is just talking about what's happening in 2020.
Yeah.
So those are,
I guess maybe a clearer way for me to ask that question is, in your level 3 BOCC budget, does that factor in those revenue changes or not?
The 1.34 million. So yes, my budget level 3 does factor in increasing the revenue.
Decreasing.
And increasing the revenue in the treasurer's budget.
Increasing?
I thought she wanted to decrease the amount.
Yeah.
She does want to decrease the amount, and I think that we're being too conservative by decreasing the amount.
Oh,
I think that that's what's contributed to our over collection of revenue, and I think that if we continue to do that, we're just shorting ourselves, and so that's my opinion. You can decide. We can talk about that some more if you want to think about it. It's definitely open to.
I think so, and not because I don't trust your calculus there, but it's a large number, and I'd like to maybe hear a little bit more from Lisa as to how she arrived. I'd like to see both her math and your math, and kind of understand, because you're basically about as far apart on those two particular items as you can get. And I'd just be curious at just seeing how she arrived at that conclusion after hearing how you've kind of arrived at yours. So but we can track that down. That's not hard to do.
Yeah, and just to be perfectly clear, the beginning fund balance, the treasurer does not have any input on that, or hasn't in the past. She hasn't had any input on this calculation of beginning fund balance. So the 14 million.
Yeah.
She didn't,
Right. Yeah, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about her revenue projections, what she's seeing that makes her think that we're over by that much versus what you're seeing that makes you think we're under by that much.
Okay. So would you like me to have her schedule a meeting, a budget workshop meeting to talk about that?
However she's comfortable presenting to us, I'll defer to her on that, but I however she wants to do it is fine.
Okay. And part of my thinking on that is our sales tax, is a really good example. I mean, we are looking at reaching 6.5 million in 2020. Our sales tax again for September came in almost 100,000 more than at this time last year. And, Lisa was asking to push the sales tax back, to a number that I feel like is way too conservative. So, that's just an example. But yeah, we can definitely ask her to come in and talk to us about that.
Thank you. So anyway, I didn't mean to derail us from your presentation on beginning fund balance numbers.
Oh yeah, that's okay. So so at 25%, so we would need about $11 million at the very, very low end. I would be more comfortable with at least 12 to 13 million for beginning or ending fund balance, beginning and ending fund balance. So putting the operating reserve at 25%, that brings us to about 8.5 million. And the 25% is, it's 25% of our previous year's operating expenditures. So this would be, the 34 million is 2019's. So, each year it's consistently going to go up. We're going to need more if we're going to keep with that operating reserve of 25%, assuming that our expenditures climb each year.
Mhm.
So does that answer the question on how much we'll need?
Sure. Yeah, for me it does. I don't know. So the other question that I have, and one of the things that this is maybe more for Commissioners Trask and Netherland, I've mentioned to both Jennifer and Frank, it's been wanting to consider this year not taking the 1% property tax increase and banking that capacity, given all of the other challenges that the people are facing right now. I assume all of your revenue projections include the 1%.
They do, but that was actually my next item to talk about, because the implicit price deflator, it's fallen below the 1%. And so it's at 0.60152% as of August 27th. And so we, since we have a population of greater than 10,000, we need to adopt a resolution of substantial need if we wish to increase the levy, or if we want to bank the capacity up to the 1%. So, so if you want to bank it, that 1%, we would need to do that substantial need resolution. If you want to bank the 0.60152, we don't have to do that. But if you're going to bank it, I would recommend banking 1%, just so that the capacity is there. I mean, I think that the need is there, especially since we're looking at adopting possibly an out of balance budget.
How are we looking at adopting an out of balance budget?
I mean, if, you know, because the budget level 3 is out of balance at this time, is what I mean.
Gotcha. Commissioners, any thoughts on that?
Well, you know, we've all talked before. I know that we're moving close to that 15 million mark eventually here. And I've always said it, when you get to that level, we either need to give back or create a lot more services, because other than that, it becomes just putting it away and almost kind of like taking the steal from them. So the idea of, in this year in particular, giving them back their increase, I think that that's an absolute, that we really should do that this year. Because I do think the numbers are going to be great, but I think I understand what Jennifer's saying. To do that, though, we're going to have to take some of this this money that is in our ending fund balance in order to pull that off this year.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's exactly what I was saying. Thank you.
Yeah. Which we would have, either way, we would have the capacity and remain compliant with our financial policy. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, we would be in compliance, yes.
Well,
And
financial policy, or what we've said in the past, Commissioner, because we had those promises about not spending more than what's.
I thought they were kind of rolled up into the same. So
yeah, this year to do this, we would have to, and I'm not having a problem with it, because again, I know that what the number really is going to be, and I think you do too, and we all do. Sharon does. With that being known, we're going to end up with a windfall at the end of the year this year that I think we should be giving back. This is the one year they could really use it. You know it, I know it, Commissioner Trask knows it. We could absorb it, and it won't make a difference. It won't hurt us, as long as we stay tight with what we're doing in the budget for status quo.
mm-hmm.
I'm good with that. I'd like to see us help if we can.
Okay, so so we're looking at then banking capacity instead of taking anything, and is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah,
That's what you're hearing from me. The reason why, you know, it's always controversial a little bit, but if something bad does happen and we have to, and it's not, you know, let's say the economy's doing well and everybody's doing well, but the state decides to pull something down on us, that bank capacity may come in handy in 10 years for another commission to throw it out, that option away seems reckless. Because we could do all this without banking it. We can just let it go away.
Yeah, I think the only way it works is if you bank it. Otherwise, I mean, to your point, I mean, it would be, I think that would just create issues down the line. And would we still capture the new construction if we banked it? I believe we would, correct?
Yes, you would still capture that.
Okay. So it's not nothing. It's just.
Right. But it's not a full 100,000 probably. I'm sure a little bit less than that because it's actually 1% of your previous year's levy. So it's a little bit misleading in how it's calculated, or in how it's presented versus how it's calculated.
Does that have any effect on our junior taxing districts if we don't take it?
I don't believe that it does.
Well, it allows for capacity for example, I don't know where Shelton is right now, but it does allow for a capacity increase there if they're at their limit.
Mm-hmm.
And Shelton's not at their limit. And the only other place where it does have an impact is in the county's ability to do a levy shift. That whole calculation changes.
Mm-hmm. And that's off the table this year, correct?
I don't know if we were to have that discussion of moving some of those road funds back into roads, instead of using it the way we're particularly using it, we could do it through a levy shift instead.
Are you referring to the?
I'm not recommending. I'm just throwing it out there.
Kind of along those lines. I guess we can kind of table that discussion, but along those lines, I would imagine that our not taking the 1% in the general fund or current expense also means not in the road fund, correct? Commissioners?
I'm comfortable with not taking it in the road fund as well.
Okay.
I'll
Same,
follow.
I just wanted to make. Well, I'm sorry, Sharon.
No, I said I'll follow your recommendations.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to be clear on what we were considering there.
If
And
we're
I'm
going to
fine
do
with
it, this is the year to do it.
Yeah.
And
And
I'll
bank
find
that
out.
as well.
I'll find out for sure on the junior taxing districts that it doesn't affect them.
Yeah, it shouldn't, like we were saying, but I mean, that makes sense that it wouldn't, but.
And so with banking the capacity, did you want to do the resolution for a substantial need and bank the full 1%?
Yeah, I would. I mean, I think can we demonstrate that? I mean, are you confident that we would meet the requirements to do the full 1%?
Yes, I'm
Okay.
confident of that. So are you in agreement, commissioners? Yes. Okay. I'll get that resolution prepared then. Okay, so with that, we're leaving the property taxes as is, taking new construction. The next item that I have is asking, if you want to do a levy shift, that would be an option. So I'm just throwing that out there that that would be an option if we want to bridge that gap and adopt a balanced budget, without using ending fund balance. So I just wanted to see if there's any interest in me researching that further. And we can talk about that later or think about it, whatever you want to do.
I'd like to spend a little bit more time with you and so that I can fully understand.
Okay.
I'd like for us to consider either that or just straight ending fund paying for part of what we have the sheriff's department utilizing out of the road funds. As you guys already know, it's harder and harder for them to do it, to use it. Eventually we could get hit on it. The only problem to remember is if we put it back into cash instead of out of that, it'd take a bigger event to move it later. But I would like to see us, putting their money back out there to use as it's supposed to be used.
And I'm sorry, Commissioner, you're referencing a levy shift or the diversion?
I'm referencing the diversion that we're doing now. We could either do it through a levy shift to get it back into our budget, or we could look at maybe doing part of it. I'm just throwing out for the other commissioners to think about. Even if we took 500,000 or something and moved it from general fund into that, and then brought down the amount that we're charging roads by 500,000. It creates more flexibility into that money in the sheriff's department. It also makes it easier for them to be able to use it without it going back at the end of the year.
If I can add to that, if the diversion is replaced by a levy shift in its entirety or in some portion, then that levy shift needs to be done every year in order to maintain the same level of funding for the traffic policing component of the sheriff's office.
Or we take part of it, like I said, out of our general fund and start to move it back into roads.
Correct.
When we do it as a levy shift, it's not as encumbered as for the sheriff's department as when we do it through the diversion. That's all I'm saying. It's just easier for them. It's dollars that are easier for them to work with.
Right. I don't think that CRAB is too happy with what we're doing right now either. They've expressed.
Well, we're one of the highest in the whole state of Washington.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll look at some scenarios on levy shift versus the diversion. I'll just come up with a few different scenarios for you to look at.
If Shelton's not close to their cap, this might be the year to look at that. Am I understanding that right, Frank?
That is, and they're not close to the cap. With where valuations are going, they've successively year after year less and less close to their cap.
Yeah, no, I think it's worthwhile looking at. I mean, I think I would be more comfortable with a levy shift for that than I would be this year going at it from the the general fund side. But I would also be interested in hearing just Public Works and the Sheriff's Office's perspectives on their preference as well. I'm sure we have workshops scheduled with both of them. Do we?
Yes, I believe so. I know the Sheriff's Office has scheduled, and I believe Public Works has as well. And I have a meeting with Public Works on Wednesday, so we can look at that at that time too.
There's a big benefit to the Sheriff's Office to do it that way. As Commissioner Netherland noted, it is a little bit more flexible for them. But it's a push for Public Works. So just be interested in their perspectives.
Except for Public Works is having to do some of the work to make sure that it looks correct. But also, though, they may see it as hope of starting to get their money back in the near future. Because, as Frank said, it would require us to do it all the time or to start to work it into our budget again.
Yeah, we definitely need to start winding it down. And obviously they've worked really, really hard to fit everything within the CRAB requirements, but it's just not the most sustainable way to address those issues.
Well, remember, there's now been several times where we've had to give that money back after taking it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Hey, Jennifer, maybe along those lines, can you maybe figure out over the past 5 years how much of a difference there has been that we've had to consider making other purchases road related versus what we've done through the diversion?
Yeah, I can definitely.
And that might be a good starting point number wise for us to start thinking about what to do with a levy shift.
Yeah, I think I actually have that somewhere.
I'm sure you do.
Yeah, and then there's also the issue of we over collect on the diversion because that's the way it has to be done. There's competing statutes, and we end up having to give back money to roads or before year end, and that's just a real pain to get that done before year end. And so yeah, that whole thing would be nice to if we could figure out a better way.
Competing statutes, who'd have thought?
Yeah, the treasurer has to collect in a certain fashion, and then if the roads money, if it hits roads, and I might not be saying this correctly, so but if it hits the road fund first, it becomes roads money, and so it's more restrictive than if it were to come into the general fund first, and so that's why we have to do it that way. But anyway, it's a little strange. What's that, Frank?
You're correct.
I'm sure I would be critiqued if Crab was listening, but it's I mean, as far as logistics, but I think that's kind of how it goes. So anyway, with that, we'll figure out a few scenarios, and we can talk to Public Works and the Sheriff's Office and get that all figured out. So are we done, ready to move on to?
Just a clarification on the actual thing you have on the screen, back to the original questions. So currently we're looking at unreserved of 2 million, but if we get to adjusting that number to a realistic number, we're looking closer to 3.5 million of unreserved at the end of this year, right?
Yeah, I'm thinking that unreserved would probably be about 3 million. Right? Yeah, roughly.
So a couple of other, well, I'll hold my other questions. I don't know how much more you have to present. So
not too much more. So if you have anything you want to bring up or any questions, go ahead.
So I was going to say, we've made an effort this year to refinance debt. Given some of the potential unreserved fund balance, are there any outstanding debt items that we're close on that we could retire as a one-time expense with some of that money?
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely recommend retiring the interfund loan between Public Works for Building 8 and current expense. I don't think there's a whole lot left on that one. I don't remember the number off the top of my head, but I want to say it's like a couple $100,000, maybe less. But it would save us, I think, roughly $30,000 in interest, and I'm just throwing those numbers out. So those might be absolutely wrong, but I mean, it would save a little bit to, spend a little, save a little. So, and not to mention that interfund loans are not supposed to be longer than 3 years. So that would.
What year are we on with that?
Oh, like year 12 or something. I don't know. It's way past. I mean, it was a 20-year loan, I believe.
Mason County temporary.
Yes, exactly. So, yeah, we got dinged on that one way back when the state auditor realized we had done a 20-year interfund loan when they're not supposed to be more than 3. So they kind of look past it every year, but that would be nice to get that one paid off so that we're in compliance with interfund loans.
I think I was talking to Lisa, and she said that there were some others too that might be a possibility or would be good ideas if we could do it as well.
Do you know what those were?
One was Building 10.
Yeah, Building 10 would be a really good one, but that is REIT funds where, I guess this is REIT too. So anyway, yeah, either one of those would be good.
If you were to place one as the highest priority, which one would it be?
I would have to take a look at that before I answer that.
Size is so small though, we ought to retire the public works one.
How much, can you say the outstanding balance on that again?
Yeah, I can open that.
How much of business and accounting school now, finance, is all learning how to use Excel?
Oh my gosh. Do they even teach it in there? They just assume you know it. I think, you know.
They teach it at the college level. Remember that one, Frank?
Yep.
That was a tough one for me. Can read them like a son of a gun, but boy, creating it out of nowhere.
Be careful, don't blow up the county internet.
I'm gonna say we need to upgrade her computer.
Well, it takes mine forever for Excel to load as well.
So I was just looking for the loan schedules. So on the interfund loan, it is a 20-year loan. It began in 2010, and we have an interest. We've got 48,000 remaining in interest payments, and then in principal, we have 369,000. So I was a little off. Sorry about that. And then in the
Frank, we didn't cover any of that when we refinanced that one.
well, I don't know. We didn't refinance this one because it's interfund, so it's not necessarily.
I meant the building. We refinanced that whole building and everything that was there.
When
2014?
I don't recall refinancing that at all.
Oh, maybe you weren't here yet. I thought you were. Remember, we changed it. It was a different kind of structure. That one had a different type of loan and a different structure than the other ones had.
And on building 10, at the beginning of 2020, we have a balance of 515,000 on that one. So, and the interest is actually fairly low. It looks like 4.5% interest. And I would have to calculate what the interest savings would be on that, but the principal is 515,000. So, I mean, that would be, we would probably save more money on this one in interest if we chose to pay this one off. So I would say this one, the Olson building would be, building 10 would be a higher priority to pay off. But the interfund loan would be more obtainable, being a lesser amount. So does that help with that question? You guys still there?
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, I would just, I don't know that we need to decide anything right now, but keep it as part of the conversation.
Okay. Yeah.
If there's an opportunity to kind of maybe pick one of those off, it might be worthwhile.
Definitely.
We're at 4.25%. We'll have that conversation again for sure.
Okay. So going back to the budget. So the other item I wanted to bring up, and this is very small potatoes, but it's something that does need to be talked about. The North Mason Resources contract that we have for $5,000, it expires on 12/31 of this year. So we need to decide if we're going to continue that. And just before you answer, I wanted to let you know my opinion of it is that I think that the paperwork burden has proven to be very burdensome, and I'm not sure that it's really, I mean, while the intent is great to help veterans, I'm not sure that the general fund, when we're having trouble balancing the general fund, is the way to help those veterans in need. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
I still think that it's important. I think it was never supposed to be so burdensome, though. Originally, it was supposed to be as simple as they provide their proof at the end, but instead we've made it a lot more difficult, and where they have to do turn-ins at $1,250.
I have to disagree with you on that, because I mean, either they have the paperwork or they don't. Whether they have it at the end, if they've gotten it all along like they're supposed to, whether they turn it in at the end or in the middle or at whatever point in time, shouldn't matter.
The amount of work for the dollar matters, Jennifer.
Well, I mean, that's what I'm saying, is that the amount of work, I mean, but whether he has the paperwork or not, I mean, turning it in, you know, if he turns in a quarter of it at each quarter, I mean, I don't understand why that's more burdensome than turning it all in at the end. And we need to make sure that we are holding up our end of the, you know, doing our due diligence and not expending funds that we're not supposed to. So it's not just that we're being mean about it, it's that, you know, we have rules, laws in place where we can't just expend these funds without any proof.
Have they been spending the money?
Yes.
You know, I think you know, I think this is an issue that I hear about regularly from our partner agencies. You know, we've struggled with you know, compliance generally, and I feel for you on that, and obviously over in public health that has had to deal with other community partner agencies that have not been able to figure out, you know, how to submit forms and you know, the reporting that's necessary. How much? So we it was 5,000 to the north end, and then 5,000 down here. We just did 5,000.
5,000, 2,500 north, 2,500 south.
And then who was it? So it was a different agency administering the 2,500?
No, it ended up being the same agency administering both ends.
Okay.
Administering it, but it's two different organizations that are using it.
Yeah, I do know that they're having issues with some of the people administrating the funds. So maybe we want to just concentrate on making sure that they follow the proper procedures.
Jennifer, is it you that's directly managing it, or is it Kelly?
It's me.
How many hours a quarter can you say that you've been working on the compliance side of this?
So it's not so much, it's not a burden to me, it's a burden to North Mason Resources, and then, you know, getting the information to me. I think that's where the burden lies, is, you know, so far I have not received everything that the contract asks for, and which is required by law, not just, you know, we didn't just put it in the contract because we you know, wanted to. It just, we have to prove that the funds went to the poor and infirm. And so anyway, so far it hasn't been, a burden on me so much as it has been on North Mason Resources.
Have they, I'll use a crude term, but have they complained?
Yes.
So maybe there's another agency that would be more suited to dispense that money if the burden isn't on our side, if it's on the reporting side, the recipient side.
And again, I mean, I don't think that it's so much the issue of the person involved necessarily, but as much as the paperwork burden that is required for this money. But yeah, I don't know.
Do you have any thoughts on how you would fix that, or is it? I mean, are we? Is this like the immovable object and the irresistible force?
I mean, how I would fix it is just, make sure that I would not front the money to them. I would reimburse them, and I think that might help instead of fronting the money, which. But I don't know that they can do that if they don't have those resources available.
Really is a hard place.
What was that, Sharon?
He said this really is a rock and a hard place,
A bit for $5,000.
right? And I know that they need the help, the veterans. And are we certain that it's going for veterans?
No, not at this point. I'm not certain. And it doesn't have to, according to the contract, because by law, we don't, we can't use general funds to service just veterans. I mean, we can, they have to be poor or infirm, poor or disabled. And so that's the big catch. And I understand the intent, but I just feel very strongly that the general fund is not the place to go. There has to be other resources out there to help those veterans, I would think.
That's always been the argument over and over. There has to be other resources. There has to be other, but there's not. That's been the difference between this fund. This fund has been being able to be used when none of the other stuff covers it in order to get them the fuel while they're out there in the woods, different things that other pockets don't have money for. And, I know it was important. I know it has helped a lot out there with those veterans, and it has made a difference. I know, the ones in South Mason, I know they're using it extremely well. The idea of letting something like that drop just seems like such a shame. Originally, it was when we had our conversations, it was supposed to be as simple as they give a paper to the person, they attest to the fact that they're this, this, and this, and that's what it is. But apparently, we've made it a little harder than that.
Sounds a lot like our PUD conundrum.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
I just think it's a low-hanging fruit that actually has a huge benefit out there in that community where they can't get those funds to do some of the simplest things. This is another one that's also even paid for shower tokens for them. Sorry about that. They don't have that here, but in North Mason, that's what happens. They're shuttled down to the Belfast State Park and can take showers.
Jennifer, can you share with us or me, if I assume they'd like to see it too, but can you just share with us whatever reporting you have received to date?
And maybe also what's required too.
Yes.
Maybe a copy of the contract.
Okay, yeah, I'll share that, and then we can revisit that 5,000 or leave it in. Definitely, whatever you want to do.
Or find a way to make it work so we can continue to help.
Okay. Okay, so moving on from that, the only other items that I have within the general fund are, to help bridge the gap. I mean, we can look at possibly increasing some of the revenue that we've consistently under budgeted the last few years. And part of that is, that 900,000. I mean, I would think we could bump that up even a little bit more. And I'm going to open up my detailed budget spreadsheet for you to see.
Yeah, I guess my question is, where is she choosing it? Have we historically not made the mark there? Was it the 1 year that we did not make the mark there? Or is it none of the above and she's choosing it for another reason because she feels it's going to drop?
So on the revenue, in the treasurer's office, so we have the sales and use tax. These are the treasurer's comments that she wanted to bring it back down to 6 million in the budget, where I had increased it to 6.25. Since we're on track to receive at least 6.5 million this year. She's just saying that the budget, the economy is unstable, and 6 million is a more conservative number. And I think that's the same that she put in for the criminal justice as well. And payment in lieu of tax, we had increased that a little bit. So basically, the same comments throughout, that she's just being more conservative based on the uncertain economy and lower timber sales for timber.
Where were we at this year? Did we meet the criteria that we thought? Did we meet the number?
For timber, we so far through June have received 125,000, and I don't have September's done yet, but I can look at.
Actually, I gotta step out for just a second, but keep going, okay?
Okay.
Yeah, didn't DNR say that they would be reducing?
I think that they did say that, but I'll go back and review that.
Tuesday at a budget workshop for Lisa to talk about revenue.
No, that'd be great. Thank you.
And yeah, from our meeting, they had just said that we were in, Sharon. What I remember is they said that it's usually, usually everybody harvests at the same time, depending on the market, I think is what it was.
Right. Yeah, I believe that's correct. They also said that over the years, we would average out about the same. But
yeah.
I can't remember whether it was going to be either less this year or less next year.
Yeah, and so what I took away from that meeting is that instead of budgeting 0 and having it be, a surprise every year, which is nice, I think it'd be better and more consistent to budget kind of the same number throughout, so that, like, if we think we're going to get 300,000 one year and nothing the next year, maybe budget 150,000 for each year. And that way it's not messing with our revenue so very much.
Right. Just an average of the year.
So any more questions, or do you want to wait until on the treasurer's revenue, or do you want to wait until her budget workshop for that?
Well, I think we kind of have to. We're not making any final decisions today on it anyway, right? So
Right, yeah, definitely.
just taking the information you're given, keep it in mind, and then, I myself, I know that when the time comes, I'm more likely to lean towards finding that happy medium there and moving forward. Historically, it doesn't dry up. We did that the 1 year or so in order to protect us so we can put money away. That's why that was originally done. Now it's time to recognize it and not keep amassing money at the end of the year.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that we need to find that plateau instead of kind of hoarding the money away.
Yeah.
Not that we're hoarding it away, but I think that we maybe need to use a little bit of it this year, a little bit.
Yeah, and I think, I apologize for popping out there, and this was already mentioned. I think this is a good year to have a fund balance that we've had. I mean, this is what you have it for, to kind of, get through difficult times like this. And, and I think too, if we could utilize it to, retire some debt too, I think that's really helpful, kind of the overall financial picture of the county and freeing up capacity going forward. So
I agree. As long as we're using it, it's good,
Yeah.
and not just throwing it around. I like the idea of paying down that debt.
Absolutely. I think we can all agree on that one.
So, yeah, we have that 900,000 kind of hanging out. So we can decide later on if we want to include that in our budget or not. The other open items that we have for revenue in the general fund are 150,000 for FEMA between federal and state. Frank and I kind of did an analysis of what we think is going to come in. Sorry about that. What we think is going to come in for FEMA, and it will probably be next year that we receive it. And that number is subject to change, but I can put that into maintenance if you're comfortable with that. I think it's going to be at least 150,000 based on what we've expended for revenue and then eligible time.
Yeah, I think we need to start capturing some of that stuff as we're moving forward with this budget, especially if we're going to be talking about retiring some debt.
Mm-hmm.
Be nice to know what we actually have coming in on those and going out.
Yeah, so I'm comfortable with moving it into maintenance. Are you comfortable with me doing that as well?
yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And then one thing we haven't talked about for a long time, and I threw it in as a PLR, is moving the historical preservation over into current expense. We talked about it, I think, at the end of last year. And so I left their revenue as a PLR, and if you're okay with that, I'll move it in into the maintenance level. And then we'll zero out their fund for next year, Fund 116. And that will make them, part of the general fund. They won't pay an internal allocation.
That's the big part.
So everybody good with that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. The only other things that I wanted to talk about for the general fund are, before we have all the meetings with the departments on the PLRs, is to help balance the general fund. We could look at some of the medical. So the way that we budget medical right now for tiered medical, which would be like non-union and a couple others that I can't think of at the top of my head, but they're on a tiered rate instead of the composite rate. So we budget them like we're going to pay the maximum amount, and not everybody has a family. Some people waive medical. So we could look at maybe reducing some of the department's medical that have historically, had a higher budget to actual. So that's an option we can think about.
What's the, I mean, how much do you think that would shift?
I don't know. I mean, maybe a couple $100,000 at most. I mean, it's a pretty substantial amount. I would need to analyze that more closely. I just wanted to see if it was something that you wanted to mess with.
Just as we remember, though, that when we do that, then at the ending fund balance at the end of the year, it 6 in, 2 in, 2 out.
Yeah. So we can just keep that in mind, that that's something we can look at. And then the last thing that I had was a couple of the transfers. So we have the transfer into health from current expense, and it's $362,000 right now. And I'm not sure that they're going to need that full amount. So that's somewhere we could look at possibly lowering. I know that health has some grants that are like cash advances. So we wouldn't want to, kind of use that as to carry them through any type of operating that's not grant related, but we could kind of analyze that and see if they really need that full $362,000, and we can talk about that at their budget workshop.
And the ones that they've received cash in advance, if they don't use it, they have to pay interest on that, correct?
Yeah, they have to pay interest back, I think, on most of the grants. I think that's normally how they're written. They have to pay interest on the money, yeah, that's sitting in the county's fund that we're earning interest on. Any interest earned, we have to return it to the granting agency.
If the money's not used.
Yeah, I believe so.
To the budget workshop.
Really?
Really?
I'll check with them and see.
Yet?
Guess they're a little preoccupied right now.
We can go with that.
Okay, so that was all that I have on the general fund. I did want to just kind of take a look at the special funds if you want to look at those. Or is everybody burnt out?
No, but I have to leave shortly, so
Okay.
if we can run through it, be appreciated.
Okay, so here is the special and other funds revenue, and you'll notice that and we do have the general fund included in here as well as a total. But, you'll notice that we don't have a lot of PLRs for the expenditure side, which okay, so here's the expenditures. So we, on the PLR side, they're mostly zeros, and that's not because they don't have PLRs. That's just because I have balanced out their fund, so the difference goes into fund balance. So anyway, there are a few outstanding, like this $654, this North Bay Sewer Reserve. This fund needs to go away. We're not going to budget for it next year. It has no cash left, so that I left that one open because we need to delete the fund. The next one, Russellwood, they had a very small beginning fund balance, and so I increased it. So I think that's what their difference is. And then they had more REIT funds coming in. So I think that played a factor in there too. Beards Cove had a very small beginning fund balance that I thought looked odd, so I left that one open as well. And equipment rental and revolving, I think that one was mostly the revenue coming in. The vehicle revenue is not going to be as high. It was the same revenue for the budget this year as it was last year, or for 2021 as for 2020, and we know it's not going to be that high, so I reduced it to what I thought it actually would be. So those are the outstanding amounts that I didn't roll into fund balance, but there are a few others in here within these amounts that we'll bring forward with the budget workshops. So I just wanted to point that out. But right now, the total budget or total department asks are 121,126,150. So that includes the general fund. And then budget level 3 is 121,138,586. And those two numbers balance between, or within a few dollars anyway, between revenue and expense, Excel rounding. So any questions or comments on that at this time?
Yeah, Jennifer, question for me. We've been discussing in previous budget cycles auditors O&M and a portion of that being paid from the general fund. Was that a request in the preliminary budget? Is that a PLR this year?
It is. Yes, and the auditors, I know that they have scheduled a budget workshop, and that will definitely be a topic of discussion. And I know that is also on the state auditor's website as well. So that would be something I would recommend that we take care of.
So I bring that up, commissioners, just for your knowledge, and if we're in agreement, I'd be okay moving that now. That's been an outstanding issue for the past couple of years. And so given some of the information Jennifer just presented, what's the total on it for this 21?
It's about 51,000 plus 51,000 plus 1129. So what is that? 52,203. That number there. Yeah.
So I would be supportive of moving that back, but be open to hearing the other commissioners' thoughts on that.
I'm already there. I agree.
Okay.
So you can let the auditor's office know that's one less thing that they have to talk about
Great.
at their briefing.
Okay. Thank you very much. I will do that. Okay. Any other items, questions, comments before we wrap up our meeting?
Probably about 1 million, but I'll hold them.
Okay. And I got the message that you all want budget books.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
I'll include this summary briefing in your budget books, and the items for the budget workshops I'll give to you in paper as well.
Awesome.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Have a good evening.
Too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, hey, before we all log off, Jennifer, probably not so much for you. Well, maybe. Frank, one of the things that we were going to do, I got a message from the folks at the YMCA.
That was interesting.
Yeah,
Feedback somewhere.
yeah.
What was the question?
So the CARES Act allotment that we were discussing for the YMCA,
For the childcare?
Yeah. They were just inquiring as to the status. I know Patrick was on earlier today, and then we had our issues, and so I just kind of, if you want to maybe follow back up with them.
I definitely will. I'll follow up with Patrick and the North Mason Boys and Girls Club.
Okay. And is any of that in question from Commerce, or are we just deliberating whether or not to? Where do we stand, I guess, with that?
Commerce is still kind of up in the air on that one as well. They would rather see the money go toward, well, they don't want counties involved with childcare. They don't want counties using that money to start childcare, but as far as helping others with providing childcare, that's great. But they just don't want the counties involved with, I guess,
Competition with the others that are out there.
right. They don't want it to be they would rather private industry, private businesses like the YMCA and North Mason Boys and Girls Club. They would rather see them provide the child care and the county just give them some money to do it.
Isn't that what we're talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
In general, yes.
Mhm.
So it's not like we're going to give childcare funding to individuals. It's childcare assistance to the Y and or to the North Mason Boys and Girls Club.
right.
Correct.
So are we all in agreement on those, or I just want to know where we are with that?
Yes.
The only thing I ask, if we're going to pay the dollar amount specific, if we don't fill up the quota using our people like we're talking, that actually becomes a grant for some other kids or something that are needy, rather than just disappearing into the ether.
Yeah, one of the issues is that money has to be spent by the end of the year. They cannot return money that we gave them. So we need to make sure that that they know that in the contract.
So I know with the Boys and Girls Club, their 75 was through the fall, was just for the fall.
And that's
And the Y sounded like it was longer than that. So maybe we just even them out and give through the fall.
So the Y was for a longer period
Yeah.
through the end of the school year.
through the end of the school year, correct?
But if we can't, if they can't spend that all by the end of this year, then that seems problematic. So why don't we just dial back the amount
To match the allotment through the end of the year.
Yeah.
Yep.
I agree.
Are we good with that, commissioners?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, I will work and I'll circle back with the Y.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, everybody.
All right.
All right.
See you tomorrow.